Yeshivat Eretz Tzvi honors Rabbi Simcha Krauss. Born into an intellectual rabbinic family, Rabbi Krauss survived the German-Soviet struggle during World War II and the communist takeover of his home in Romania. Fleeing to the United States in 1948, the Krauss family ultimately settled in the Washington Heights section of Manhattan, where the patriarch, Rabbi Dr. Avraham David HaKohen Krauss, became the Rav. With a mixture of Romanian German intellectualism on his father's side and Hasidic spiritualism inherited from his mother, Rabbi Krauss attended Yeshivas Chassam Sofer. When it came time to move on after high school, despite being courted by Rav Aaron Cutler to join the Beis Medrash of Lakewood, Rabbi Krauss chose to attend Yeshivas Chaim Berlin. Chaim Berlin enabled him to eventually attend the City College of New York. Maintaining a close relationship with Chaim Berlin's famed Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Yitzchak Hutner, Rabbi Krauss was given special permission to attend the shirim of Rav Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik at Yeshiva University. Rabbi Krauss's blend of profound intellectual acumen and lumdus learning, his close relationship with some of the greatest Talmidei Chachamim in America, and his experience having been raised in a prestigious rabbinic home uniquely prepared him for his future career as Rav in America. With his dear wife Esther, Rabbi Krauss assumed leadership roles in several kehilot. In 1965, the Krausses moved to Utica, New York, where Rabbi Krauss led congregation Beis Yaakov, founded a day school, and continued pursuing academic studies in political science, a subject he began to teach in university. After several years in the quiet town of Utica, the Krausses moved westward to the young Israel of St. Louis. Always investing in increasing Torah, Rabbi Krauss also founded the Block Yeshiva High School.
It's a great pleasure to join Eretz HaTzvi this evening in honoring Rabbi Simcha Krauss. In 1967, Adina and I moved back to St. Louis. It had always been our intent to become members of the Young Israel. However, when we arrived, we learned that there was not a rabbi in the shul. I went to the president and said, if we're going to have a vigorous, vital community, we need a Rav. And as often happens in such cases, I became the chair of the search committee. Thanks to our good common friend, Rabbi Yosef Blau, I was introduced to Rabbi Simcha Krauss. In 1969, Rabbi Krauss, Esther, and their daughter Rivka arrived in St. Louis. I realized probably from the first day they arrived that Rabbi Krauss would revitalize and energize our community. And indeed, during 10 years in St. Louis, Rabbi Krauss's lumdus, his firm commitment to Torah Umada in the deepest sense, his respect for all Jews, no matter what their religious practice, his commitment to Medinat Yisrael, and yes, his courage to stand by his convictions, had a dramatic impact on our community. During those years, Rabbi Krauss elevated the level of Torah learning in our shul by his own shiurim and by the many Torah scholars he brought to visit. He enabled a Midwestern community to become part of the national Orthodox scene. And with fervor and enthusiasm, he led the establishment of our first yeshiva high school. Rabbi Krauss's personal warmth and sensitivity was apparent to all, and during those years, many deep, long-lasting friendships were formed. Within a very short time of his arrival, I knew that for me, this was the beginning of a lifelong friendship. Since 1969, he has been my Rav, the person I turn to for halachic advice in happy times and in times of great challenge. As Chaverim, we collaborated on many projects together. As a friend, he encourages creativity, optimism, and always striving for the best. What a bracha to have Rabbi Krauss as my Rav and my Chaver. May our friendship continue ad meya ve'esrim.
After a decade in St. Louis, the Krausses returned to their family roots, and Rabbi Krauss assumed the role of Rav of Young Israel of Hillcrest in Queens. During that time, Rabbi Krauss taught in the IBC program of Yeshiva University, became the leader of the Orthodox Zionists of America, and a pivotal figure in the Rabbinical Council of America.
Good evening. I am Jonathan Halpert, along with my son Yehuda, and we feel privileged and honored to be here tonight to be able to say a few personal words about Rabbi Krauss on the occasion of his being honored by Yeshivat Eretz HaTzvi. Over the years, our family has been privileged to hear Rabbi Krauss's words of Torah and see his hashkafa, but beyond that, he has served as our moral compass, always demonstrating integrity and humility. I feel very fortunate that we are able to say that Rabbi Krauss is our Rabbi and our friend. It is our hope and wishes and prayers that with the help of God, Rabbi Krauss will continue to impart his scholarship, hashkafa, and character to the future students of Yeshivat Eretz HaTzvi. Chazak v'yamatz, Rabbi Krauss.
As a kid in the Young Israel of Hillcrest, I have strong memories of Rabbi Krauss's powerful drashot and shiurim from the pulpit. But perhaps my fondest memories are of my interactions with Rabbi Krauss in between Mincha and Maariv. Every Shabbat, Rabbi Krauss would sit at the Amud, and you'd have the opportunity to go up and discuss issues or ask shilas from Rabbi Krauss. I recall waiting my turn, formulating in my head what I was going to ask and how I was going to say it. And each time I'd have that interaction, Rabbi Krauss would sometimes nod his head and say, oh, interesting, okay, yes. Or sometimes if you had asked a really good question, Rabbi Krauss would get excited. He'd go, yes, that's a good question, I've thought of that. And that interaction, that response, that really put you on a high for the week. This past Sukkot, I had the opportunity to attend the Simchat Beit HaShoeva at Yeshivat Eretz HaTzvi. I got to see Rabbi Krauss address the students. I got to see the interaction. I got to see each and every Talmud at Yeshivat Eretz HaTzvi have that same interaction and have that same opportunity to learn from Rabbi Krauss and see his love for Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and Am Yisrael. Rabbi Krauss, mazel tov on this great occasion, and to second my father's words, chazak be'ematz.
Retiring from a life of service to the American Jewish community, Rav Simcha and Esther not only preached Zionism, but fulfilled the dream by moving to Eretz Yisrael. At this time, Rabbi Krauss's and Yeshivat Eretz HaTzvi's paths crossed. Rabbi Krauss teaches a variety of courses and is an integral member of the senior faculty.
On the day that Rav Krauss first came to visit Eretz HaTzvi, my chavruta, Hod Klein, and I were learning a rishon on Masechet Gittin. It was either the rush or the run, and we were trying to figure out a particular line. We got stuck. So we looked around the Beit Midrash, and we saw a gentleman walking around. We didn't know him, but we said to each other, he looks like a rabbi. Maybe we can ask him. So I walked over to him, and I said, Rabbi, can I ask you a question? Rav Krauss, being Rav Krauss, said, of course. We read him the line. We asked him our question. He said, that you are asking me this question means you didn't understand this line in the Gemara. He quoted the line in the Gemara. Then he continued, you thought it meant X. It really means Y. You probably thought this because you didn't understand this line in the Mishnah. You thought it meant A. It really means B. It was a spot-on diagnosis, and he did it all without looking at the text. It was my first encounter in learning with this great Talmid Chacham, and I am really privileged to be able to continue learning and to build a relationship with someone who really has such a mastery over our sacred texts and who uses them to build a vibrant modern Orthodox Judaism. Rav Krauss, it's a privilege to learn from you, and I wish you a mazal tov on this well-deserved honor.
In addition to influencing young future Jewish leaders, Rabbi Krauss has taken on a new role of Av Beis Din in the soon-to-be-established International Beit Din for Gittin. His impact on American Orthodoxy and world Jewry has changed in powerful new ways. Yeshivat Eretz HaTzvi is proud to honor Rav Simcha Krauss, Rav, Talmid Chacham, and light of modern Orthodoxy and Zionism.
Saba, I love when you sing Ma Hafti Sarei Sacha in the car.
Saba, I love when you ask what you can buy for me.
In addition to being a great-grandfather and a scholar, I love when my grandfather, my Saba, asked me about my love life.
Saba,
I love when you are showered, dressed, and prepared for Shabbat by 11 a.m. on Friday morning.
Saba, I love when you ask me for half a cup of coffee and a shtickle mazonis.
Saba, I love to run into my own.
Saba, I love when you try to help me learn Torah.
Can you say I love you, Saba?
Saba, I love when you call us right after Shabbos, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning in Israel.
Blow him a kiss. And say, love you, Saba.
Saba, I love when you tell me that everything I'm doing is way too dangerous.
Okay, turn around.
Turn around.
Look at the say I love you, Saba.
I love you, Saba. I love you, Saba.
Mazal tov.
Rabbi Krauss's vision of Torah flourishing in the modern world drove him to expand the role of women in synagogue life, challenging the status quo in a way that only someone of his stature could.